all. My name is Blue Jay Bird, and welcome to another exciting episode of Jay Bird's Badass B-Movies. Today, we'll be discussing the 1976 horror film Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, directed by William Crane and starring Bernie Casey.
The fear of the year is here. Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, a monster he could not control, had taken over his very soul. A screaming demon rages inside, turning him into Mr. Hyde, an unstoppable black Superman. Super strong, supernatural, and super bad. His punch can topple a skyscraper. His kick can split the earth in two. More destructive than an earthquake. Mightier than a tidal wave. A one-man disaster area. Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde. When you're seeing what ain't, you're looking at a haint. Shot full of lead and he still ain't dead. Jump back, Jack, for your skull is cracked. Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde. Starring Bernie Casey, Rosalind Cash, Stu Gillum. Directed by William Blackula Crane. Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parents. So bring your mama. She'll like it too.
Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde stars former pro football wide receiver Bernie Casey as Dr. Pride, who runs a free clinic and thrift store, while working on a serum that he hopes will cure cirrhosis of the liver. After experimenting his serum on lab rats and guinea pigs, he decides to try it on a human patient. He needs to try it on a human to get the kinks worked out because the animals, i.e. rabbits, guinea pigs, and rats, that received the serum became violent and eventually died from its side effects. Rosalind Cash co-stars as Dr. Billie Worth, who is also working with Dr. Pride on the serum to cure liver disease. She, however, doesn't feel right to try it on humans because of its nasty side effects it has on the lab animals. Determined to see his creation become a huge success, Dr. Pride uses it on a dying homeless woman, but it turns her into a vicious white monster, briefly, who nearly chokes a nurse to death before reverting back to her normal self after she dies of shock. The doctor whines about how he's been working on this serum for over 5 years and has no progress to show. So he goes home and tries it on himself. The serum, however, turns him into an angry white monster who cruises around Watts in his Rolls Royce looking for trouble. Dr. Hyde approaches 3 dudes on the street corner and tells them he's looking for some action. They laugh at him and tell him to get lost before he sizes them all up. One guy punches him, but that only pisses him off. After beating 2 of them up, he throws the 3rd guy through a plate glass window. Remind you, Bernie Casey's a big dude who's like 6'4" and weighs over 220 pounds, unlike some orange clown, a former television show host who claims to be that size. Mr. Hyde, after beating some information out of one of the 3 dudes, finds Linda, a lady of the night, who he's been looking for in a club. But she don't want to go out with Mr. Hyde, so her pimp, Silky, and his bodyguard confront him. In the end, he winds up trashing 7 dudes, crushes one guy's testicles, before a bar patron slashes him with a switchblade, causing Mr. Hyde to flee after he tears up the place. While Silky and his goons look for a crazy white man, Mr. Hyde turns back into Dr. Pride and is confronted by them, but they run off because he's not the crazy white man they're looking for. The next day, Dr. Pride is working at the clinic and asks out a patient for a dinner date. Dr. Billie is furious at Pride for using the homeless woman as a human guinea pig, making their already strained relationship even worse. Pride and his new lady have a nice date, but after they come home for a nightcap, Dr. Pride tells her about his serum and injects it in front of her, turning him into Mr. Hyde, and tries to give some to her, but she runs off. Mr. Hyde gets into his Rolls Royce and cruises the streets of Watts looking for some midnight action. The next morning, 2 teenage girls playing inside an old, burned-down, abandoned building discover the partially nude body of a dead prostitute. Lieutenant Jackson, played by G2 Kumbuka, and his partner, Lieutenant Harry, arrive at the scene and having to deal with the dead body of a prostitute with no eyewitnesses and no noticeable cause of death. That means the dudes actually have to work for their paycheck. We now go to the Pimp and Hose Club, which has been put back together after a crazy large white man tore it up a couple of days earlier. One of the ladies clocks out early and heads home, only to be strangled to death by Mr. Hyde. So now we know who killed the other prostitute. Lieutenants Jackson and Harry now have to piece together the two murders that either a wannabe Jack the Ripper or a crazy vigilante is out killing hookers. Silky, down a woman, tries to get one of his old workers back, but she refuses. Jackie and Harry arrive at the Pimp and Hose Club looking for some clues, but bump into Silky, who is in the middle of a spat between one of his current workers and a former. Jackson chases them out of the place while questioning the bartender and other club patrons. Silky and two of his ladies are hanging out in their car, doing a little toot before one of them is dropped off at home. But Mr. Hyde comes out of some bushes and grabs her and strangles a lady before trying to carry her off. Silky sees this and gets out of his car to confront Mr. Hyde and tries some of his pimp food and attacks him. Mr. Hyde just stands there absorbing all of his punches and kicks before Hyde smacks Silky upside his head, knocking him out. Silky's main girl leaps out of the car and jumps on Hyde's back. He smacks her around, Gorilla Press slams her on the concrete, and runs her over with his Rolls Royce before chasing after Silky. Hyde finds Silky in a dead-end alley, and just like that movie Christine, which came out a few years later, he crushes Silky with the front end of his car, and just like said movie, Silky pulls out a switchblade and tries to stab Hyde's car before dying. Dr. Pride wakes up the next morning in front of his garage. The sound of a newspaper hitting the ground wakes him up, and after looking at all the blood in the front of his car, he picks up the paper and reads the headlines that said 3 new murders in Watts before he tosses it. Dr. Pride then goes back to work in the lab and patches up his relationship with Dr. Billie before receiving a phone call from Linda, who wants to meet her at the Watts Tower. Linda pleads with Dr. Pride to turn himself in because she knows that he's the one who killed Silky and his ladies. Since Dr. Pride refuses, she goes out to the police station and meets Lieutenants Jackson and Harry and tells them that Dr. Pride is the murderer. Lieutenant Jackson drives out to the Watts Tower and finds Dr. Billie, who's out there working with some kids on some arts and crafts. Jackson asks her a bunch of questions about Dr. Pride and his possible whereabouts. Later that night, Linda dresses up and walks the streets, but is immediately called out by Mr. Hyde. Mr. Hyde chases Linda through the projects and kicks in a few doors looking for her. Mr. Pride strangles her roommate to death and flings her down a flight of stairs. Linda runs down the street into a local grocery store, and the owner tries to protect her by firing 6 shots from a large revolver into Mr. Hyde's chest before he is strangled to death and tossed into a bunch of produce. Jackson and his partner, Harry, who are driving down the street, describes Mr. Hyde as an ain't, an old African-American Southern term for a boogeyman or a ghost. Lieutenant describes him as a cross between the abominable snowman and Willie the werewolf. Mr. Hyde eventually tracks down Linda, who passes out in front of him. He carries her to the Watts Tower. With half of the LAPD arriving at the Watts Tower to confront Mr. Hyde, they try to calm him down before he throws Linda, and along with a crazy fit, and runs into the Watts Tower. A police dog goes after him, but he strangles it to death and tosses the body back at the police. Mr. Hyde climbs the Watts Tower like King Kong and is shot more times than Scarface before falling down and dying in front of his one true love, Billie. He turns back into Dr. Pride before he expires. The end. Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde has 9 deaths. We get to see some pimp food, a pimp versus car, and 1 dead police dog. This 1976 production was originally known as The Watts Monster and was directed by William Crane, whose other film is Blackula. I would not classify this movie as a blaxploitation film because it's an interesting and very entertaining movie that has a very unique take on the Robert Louis Stevenson novella, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This was Bernie Casey's 9th film after he retired from the NFL in 1969. He considered himself an artist first and a football player second, according to him. During his downtime in the offseason, when he played for 8 years with the San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams, Casey would often say in interviews at the time that if he made as much money painting as he did playing professional football, he would retire. The director William Crane is an African-American filmmaker who graduated from the UCLA Film School and made 2 cult classics in the 70s. It's a shame that William Crane never made any more movies during the 70s because I found his productions of Dr. Black and Mr. Hyde, along with Blackula, as highly enjoyable, and I strongly recommend them. Well, that ends this episode of Blue Jay Bird's Badass B Movies. I hope to see you soon. Take care.